And we are ready.
And we're going.
Okay. I will call to order the Monday, April 25th, 2022 meeting of the Oregon City Planning Commission. Let's call roll.
Commissioner Bob LaSalle.
Here.
Commissioner Chris Staggs.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Here.
Chair Dirk Schlagenhofer.
Here.
Daphne West is absent this meeting. Commissioner Patty Gage is here online. And Commissioner Greg Stoll is absent today.
Okay. All right. We don't have any public comments on items not on the agenda, do we? Nothing showed up?
Not that I'm aware.
Okay. All right. Had to ask. Okay. First item on the agenda, public hearing number 1. It is going to be a continuation of GLUA-21-00045, MAS 21-00006, VAR 22-00001, Park Place Crossing General Development Plan. It is a land use hearing, so we are going to have to read the quasi-judicial hearing script. The following is, one public hearing on land use application is scheduled tonight. Our role is to conduct the public hearing and to make decisions about the matter before us. In making those decisions, we must apply the applicable codes and laws and cannot vary from or change those laws or codes. Members of the Planning Commission are to be unbiased. Before the start of the hearing, I will ask the Planning Commissioners whether they have any potential conflicts, such as family, financial, or business relationships with any of the applicants or with regard to the land in question. I will also ask whether any of the Planning Commissioners have discussed the application in question with any of the parties or have independent knowledge of relevant facts, such as from a visit to the site in question. Any member of the audience may question any Planning Commissioner about their disclosures. A staff report has been prepared for each application and has been made available to the public 7 days before the public hearing. The staff report identifies the approval criteria that apply to each applicant's proposal. Staff has analyzed the criteria which are contained in the staff report. The quasi-judicial hearing procedure that the Planning Commission will follow is set out in state law and the Oregon City Municipal Code. The hearing procedure steps are shown on the Planning Commission website and on that door. Public testimony will be called on in the order it was requested in advance of the meeting. If you have not emailed city staff at planning@orcity.org to request to speak and would like to testify, please raise your virtual or physical hand when I ask if there are others in the audience who would like to participate. For the public record, please begin all testimony stating your name and city of residence. If you would like to receive a copy of the notice of decision, please state your mailing address or email address. Testimony and evidence should be directed towards the applicable approval criteria. If you believe other criteria apply, in addition to those addressed in the staff report, identify and discuss those criteria and explain how and why you believe they apply to the application under consideration. Any person may submit written material while the public record is open on each application. Any written materials received by the city staff during the time period in which the record is open will be placed in the record. Written materials submitted during the public hearing must be presented to the city staff in order to become part of the record. If a person intends for PowerPoint presentations, reports, pictures, or other exhibits used in their oral testimony to be placed in the record, copies must be submitted to city staff while the record is open. If they're not given to staff, they will not be included in the record. Any person wishing a continuance to present additional evidence and testimony or to keep the record open to respond to new evidence must make that request before the public testimony portion of the hearing is closed. If the Planning Commission makes a decision with which you disagree, any issue you may wish to appeal must have been raised on the record for the consideration of the City Commission or LUBA or both. Without raising the issue on the record with sufficient detail and accompanied by statements or evidence that the city and all parties can respond to, the issue will not be deemed appealable to the City Commission or State Land Use Board of Appeals. In addition, the failure of an applicant to raise constitutional or other issues related to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient detail to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. We will now open the record for Oregon City file number GLUA-21-00045, MAS 21-00006, and VAR 22-00001, Park Place Crossing General Development Plan. We will now ask each planning commissioner if they have had any ex parte contacts, conflicts of interest, bias, or any other statement to declare, or have visited the site. If there was a site visit, the planning commissioner must declare what he or she perceived. We'll start with Commissioner LaSalle.
Yes, I declare ex parte contact as follows. I have quite a bit. First, as the land use chair of the Park Place Neighborhood Association, I have presented their opinions, concerns, and desires to both the Planning Commission and the City Commission on several occasions. I have discussed the development on several occasions during conversations with members of the community. And I've been involved with the development since its first application for annexation. Considering this ex parte contact, I'd like to explain that as my role as the Park Place Land Use Chair, I presented the opinions in the interests of the Park Place Steering Committee and in the best way possible. Just as a public defender, I presented the issues as my own opinion, regardless of personal opinions. Considering my experience and training in decision-making, I believe I can maintain a neutral position considering the matter before us, and at the same time, I have exceptional knowledge of the issue, and I'm sure more than any other commissioner, and I'll have several questions and statements as the proceedings progress.
Okay, thank you. Have you had okay, clearly you've had a site visit, and I think that pretty much covers everything we could possibly cover. Okay, Commissioner Staggs.
I have no ex parte contact, no conflict of interest, and I have not been on the property.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Mitchell.
Ex parte contacts, nothing specific, although members of the neighborhood have spoken to me in the past. But nothing having to do with the specifics of this application. I did make a site visit. My intention was to drive through the surrounding subdivisions just to get a look at existing conditions. I tried very hard not to come to any conclusions until I hear how things are going to interconnect. Conflict of interest, no conflict of interest, but I do want to declare for the record, the applicant on this project is Icon Construction. 15 years ago, when my wife and I moved to Oregon City, Icon built our home. And 3 years ago, whatever it's been, when I ran for city commission, Mark Handress, who's the owner of Icon, did contribute to my campaign.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Gage, and I'll just recap, any ex parte contact, conflicts of interest, bias, or any other statement?
No ex parte contact, no conflicts of interest. I've been by adjacent subdivisions in the past, but not on the property itself.
Okay, thank you. And as for myself, as for ex parte contact, the only thing I can come up with is last Wednesday, Beaver Creek Hamlet had a board meeting, and I didn't realize it, but there was one of the items on their agenda was this development. I listened in long enough to realize they were talking about it. I heard nearly 500 homes. I heard traffic, and that's as long as it took for me to log off. So that didn't affect my thought processes in any way, but I thought I'd mention it in case someone saw me logged in there. I have not visited the site, but I've seen the photos of it. I'm not sure how I would visit a site that's not developed yet, and it seems to be behind neighborhoods, so I don't have a good view without going into someone's yard, so I have not visited the site. I don't have any other bias or any other statements to declare, so I don't think I've missed anybody. Would anyone like to question any of the commissioners on their statements? Wants to know if the vice chair could be.
Come up and state your name for the record. Yes.
Yeah,
make
please,
sure that the-
state your name and city of residence. Thank you.
And make sure that the green light is on.
Oh, is your green light on? Is there a green light?
Jed Peterson, Oregon City resident.
Thank you.
I was asking if the vice chair could be recused, given the connection with ICON in the past. I'd like to know how much money was contributed.
That's public record if you want to look at it online. I see no reason to recuse myself. I'm going to be able, I never pay any attention to who the applicant is. It's about the project and the impact on the city. Certainly by state law, there is no impact. I have no financial interest anywhere in this. And as planning commissioners, as city commissioners, you know, we live in the city. We hear things, we're entitled to have a life. So I'm not going to recuse myself.
Can you tell us how much you've made? I'm sure I can look it up on public record. Can you announce it to everyone?
He contributed $1,000 to my campaign.
Okay. And I'd like to, again,
Unsuccessful campaign, I might add.
that's fine. But again, I'd like to request that you recuse yourself. I find there's a conflict of interest.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone else like to question any of the commissioners on their statements? Okay, just legal clarification from our attorney. Does this work?
I believe that Commissioner Mitchell indicated that he would make a decision based on the materials that are submitted in the record and evaluate them against the approval criteria. So I have no concerns about Commissioner Mitchell continuing.
Okay, all right. I can't do anything about it if it's considered valid for our process. Okay. All right, we will now commence with the staff report, and I believe it's going to be Mrs. Kelly Reed. Thank you.
I'm Kelly Reed, planner with Oregon City's Community Development Department. This is a type 2 quasi-judicial review for a general development plan request and a variance. Okay. So tonight's hearing, we are recommending a continuance, which is needed because we received new information from the applicant very recently, and staff needs time to incorporate that new information into the staff report and recommendation. So what we're going to do tonight, in light of that, is have a brief summary from staff about background information and a little bit about the project, but no analysis of whether the plan, the proposal meets any of the criteria. And then the board can take public testimony, and we recommend you keep the record open until May 9th and continue the hearing to a date certain of May 9th. The subject property is in the Park Place Neighborhood Association. It's 92 acres. You can see on this map, we're showing the city limits, the urban growth boundary, along with, in pink, an urban reserve, which is area that could potentially see expansion of the urban growth boundary in the medium-term future, I would say. And then rural reserve in green, which is reserved for rural uses and is not planned for urban growth boundary expansion any time in the foreseeable future. So you can see the subject property here outlined in red is adjacent to the urban reserve. It is within the city limits, and then to the south of it, the properties are in the urban growth boundary, but not in the city limits. So the history on this property is that it is part of the Park Place Concept Plan, which was adopted by the city in 2008, following the addition of that land into the urban growth boundary. After that concept plan was adopted, the property owners applied for annexation in 2017, and the planning commission, city commission approved the annexation of the 92 acres once those hearings were over in 2018. Along with that annexation was a request for a zone change from county zoning to 3 different zones in city zoning categories. And those zones were based on the Park Place Concept Plan land uses that were planned. Those include R10 low density residential, R5 medium density residential, and neighborhood commercial. So here's a snippet of the Park Place Concept Plan with the project site outlined in pink. You can see in yellow is low to medium density residential. You can see there's a park. Orange is medium to high density residential. And then in the lower corner, there's the red and blue parcels, which are planned for retail or commercial uses and a small civic center. And here's a map of the zoning. You can see the vast majority of the site is in the R5 zone. A small portion is in the R10 zone, and then down in the corner where those retail parcels were shown in the concept plan, that is zone neighborhood commercial. These were the zones that were applied by the city in 2017. The site also is in a couple different overlay zones, and those include the natural resource overlay zone, which protects streams and wetlands, and the geologic hazard overlay zone, which is applied to areas with steep slopes or a history of landslides. You can see the landslide map there with orange, and then the steep slope map. So in pink, dark pink is slopes over 25%, and surrounding that is a buffer in the light pink color. The site is made up of 14 separate parcels. It has, again, as you saw in the last map, some steep slopes and also some pretty flat areas. A lot of it is used currently as very low density residential uses, along with some agriculture. The applicant has submitted this general development plan, which is a type 3 review. It is the overall long-term approach to development from now through 2030. The applicants proposed up to 476 residential lots within the 92 acres, including parks, trails, and the neighborhood commercial and civic spaces. Also included in this request is a modification to the street standards for a small segment of Holly Lane, which is the collector street that would be in the development connecting north to south. 3 adjustments to development standards, which are usually part of a general development plan request. The applicant can request adjustments to standards. There's a requested adjustment to dimensional standards in the R10 and R5 zones. There's a request for adjustment to garage placement and design standards, and a request to adjust density to increase by approximately 4%. In addition to the general development plan request, we have a request for a variance, and that would reduce the minimum lot size for attached single-family lots to 1,800 square feet. And again, I'm not going to get into detail about any of these requests at this time because we have yet to provide the full staff report. Here's a screen image of the applicant's proposed general development plan. It shows the 476 lots, which are made up of 126 attached dwelling units. You might also call those townhomes, and 350 detached dwellings. You can see the slightly wider street that comes from the north and then weaves through the site. That's Holly Lane, which is a planned collector street. It was planned as part of the Park Place concept plan. A future public park site of 4.4 acres, approximately 1.3 acres of the commercial civic space provided in 2 separate parcels, and an off-street trail system within the protected natural areas on the site. The way the general development plan process works in Oregon City is that an applicant will propose a general development plan, and that's a type 3 review that goes to the Planning Commission. If that plan is approved, then the applicant will follow that up with detailed development plan applications that are reviewed at a type 2 level. And so a type 2 level is a staff level review that is subject to the same appeal process as type 3 reviews and includes public notice. So for the detailed development plans that come later in the master planning process, each one will be noticed to property owners and residents within 300 feet of the site. There will be a 14-day public comment period, and then anyone who establishes standing in that 14-day period would then have the ability to file an appeal of that decision. When we receive a detailed development plan application, we review it for compliance with our code and also for compliance with the approved general development plan. If the Planning Commission imposes any conditions of approval on the general development plan, and staff will ensure that those conditions are addressed in the detailed development plans. And then for each phase, after that, the applicant would then apply for construction plans and permits and then commence with construction. And so then you go back to step 2 for phase 2, and then step 3, and you go back for your next phase. So each detailed development plan typically will come in on its own in order of phases. So at the next hearing, we plan to have a full staff report and recommendation in your agenda packet, and we will continue to collect the public testimony and public comments and update the public comment summary included with that. The applicant will give their presentation, and we would expect to have additional public testimony and then rebuttal. So the Planning Commission's options tonight are to take public testimony and continue to May 9th, or continue to another date certain. Any questions for staff?
Okay, thank you. Any questions? We have a question from Commissioner LaSalle.
I saw a letter from the county that disputed one of the parcels that hadn't been included in the, the urban growth boundary or something like that. Has that been resolved?
That was a comment from Metro indicating that one of the parcels hadn't been annexed into the Metro boundary. So not the UGB, but the Metro boundary, which is basically the taxing and voting district. So that'll be addressed in the staff report, but it is in the urban growth boundary.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else? Anything from Commissioner Gage? All right, thank you. All right, since we're not going to be hearing the full staff report, we are just going to be, since so many people have taken their evening to come in and give their comments, we're going to go to comments. All the comments are going to become part of the public record. And then, you know, if you want to come back at the next meeting, you're welcome to come back. but your comments will be part of the record at that time. And believe it or not, we do appreciate you all being here. We wish this many people would show up for better reasons, but it is what it is. All right, first comment is going to be from the Park Place Neighborhood Association. It's Linda Smith, and she's going to be speaking on behalf of the Neighborhood Association, so we will give her 5 minutes. And if you could please state your name and city of residence for the record, thank you.
Hi, Linda Smith. I reside in Oregon City, and I've been asked to speak on behalf of the Park Place Neighborhood Association. So the members of the Neighborhood Association were very involved in the Park Place concept plan back in the early 2000s, and had a vision of what this would look like. And the plan, as it's turning out, is not looking like what the concept envisioned. And so together we drafted a letter that has been submitted, but I do want to highlight some of the things from that letter and share them with you. So the new development represented by this application has some serious impact on the livability to the Park Place area. And primarily that has to do with the subdivisions off of Winston Drive and everybody that lives off of Holcomb Road, and that the new plan is going to funnel all of the traffic out onto Holcomb Road, where originally the traffic was to go down Holly Lane, as we saw in some of the drawings there, and down Livesay. But this new plan does not look like that's going to come to fruition. So all the traffic's going to be funneled down Holcomb Road. There's currently 1,400 homes in the Park Place neighborhood, and the development is adding close to 500 additional homes. And so we're increasing the load that Holcomb is having with the number of people up there. And during the fires that we had in September of 2020, it was just devastating trying to get off that hillside. And we're very concerned about the ability to get out in the event of an emergency. And so the traffic is a real concern. We had been told, and part of the concept plan was that the exit would be down Holly Lane and onto Redland Road, and instead it's being directed everything down Holcomb, and also through a narrow street on Winston, through from the subdivision they're building through another subdivision onto Holcomb. So it's a very narrow bottleneck to get out onto Holcomb. There's no main road. When you saw that large street there that they showed, it's dead ending behind a piece of property that's not included into this subdivision. Instead, they're going to channel it all through another neighborhood. So 500 homes are all going to go through another neighborhood to then get to Holcomb Road. So it's not a good plan. And it doesn't match the Park Place concept plan. When you look at them, apples and oranges, they do not match at all. So we're really concerned about that. And we ask that the Planning Commission hold them to what the Park Place concept plan was for lot size, for the exits, the way they were, the way the traffic for construction vehicles were all supposed to go down the hill, not up Holcomb and through all the neighborhoods. The concept and the current plan do not match, and we're not happy about that.
Thank you, Linda. Okay. I'm not used to these being typed. Roya Mansouri? Oh. Yes, sure. Maybe state both your names. And city residents? And make sure your green light's on. Okay, thank you.
We have a PowerPoint presentation. Okay. Is there a clicker?
Is this the right one?
Yes, this is correct. My name is Enoch Huang. This is my wife, Roya Mansuri. We're residents of Oregon City, specifically at 16509, which is the property marked in yellow, which is immediately to the southeast of the subject property. We have the distinction, I think, of sharing the greatest border with the planned development, approximately 500 feet along our northern border and about 625 feet on the western border. According to the proposal, there will be 9 lots in direct contact with our property, and those are marked in red. There will be 11 lots with indirect access either through the green space in that bottom right corner of the development or along the alleyway that follows that curve. In keeping with state goal number 1 about citizen involvement, I realize we're all here right now, but we did not know about this proposal until the mailer that went out at the end of March, so it came as quite a shock to us. We have a lot of concerns. There's been no engagement with us. We didn't know about it at all. We have concerns about trespassers, because they are directly in contact with our property. We worry about people camping or hiking through the forest behind our lot. We want to know what kind of expectation there is for either a vegetative or a solid boundary between our properties. We would like to request a further setback, 100 feet or so, to keep some of the tall trees that screen our property from this development. We don't want people, looking in from their second stories right into our property when we've had that before. We also have concern about this proposed extension to Holly Lane that goes through this kind of isthmus between the northeast corner of the development and the southwest portion of it. We've heard the previous testimony about the evacuation and concerns, and this proposal seems to be a bottleneck to have a narrowing of the narrowing of the requirement from 85 feet to 45 feet. So, if the code says that you're supposed to have a certain width for egress, why does it make sense to make an exception at the narrowest portion? And so we would request a reconsideration of this design and potentially even separating the development into 2 separate developments that are not contiguous. We also noticed, to our surprise, that the plans included a road onto our property, and we're not sure, according to the code 161225E, it says that you're supposed to post a notice that you're going to stub out a road for future extension. Nobody's talked to us about this, and we haven't granted any kind of easement or permission to have a road on our property. And with that, I'm going to turn the remaining presentation to Roya for her 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm Roya Mansuri. I wanted to talk about the Goal 5 resource categories that discuss the natural resources. Thanks. I think these are of concern to us too. As you can see here on the map, there's a lot of forested land that involves both our property as well as the adjacent property that is being considered for development, and it is contiguous. My concern has to do with deforestation. Obviously, trees and vegetation allow for moderation of water flow. A loss of tree roots will cause increased soil erosion and increased potential for landslides, which we have here. And of course, the remaining trees, which are located on our property, will be more exposed to adverse weather events like winds, drought, wildfires, and can lead to loss of our trees on our property without the screening of the other forests. In addition, there's also a loss of habitat. We've already seen that happen, but now you won't have any more contiguous forests. You will have fractured habitats with displacement of animals going further into our land and onward. This causes more competition. This causes a loss of genetic diversity. You end up with raccoons and rats and coyotes, and that's it. Easier transmission of diseases, and of course, less healthy animals. Also, an increase in human-wildlife contact. We have bobcats, coyotes, deer, all sorts of other animals that will be more in contact with humans. Some of these rules have not been revised since 1996, and they require or they rely on periodic review. We request that the developer and OCPC should initiate a periodic review of Goal 5 rules, and a local inventory of all natural resources on the property should be completed before approval should be granted. In addition, we're also looking at land use Goal 6, having to do with pollutants that affect air, water, noise, industry-related contaminants. Obviously, I'm concerned about the increase in impervious surfaces that will be created. That can affect the water supply for adjacent lands. We are concerned about pollutants from impervious surfaces, as well as decreased natural filtration. Underground aquifers can be depleted as well. We have a well on our property, and we know that other people have water supplies on their land. We are very concerned that we will have our aquifer dry up, and we won't have any water for our uses. So we would like the developer to show that there is going to be no damage to adjacent water supplies affecting neighboring citizens, consideration of natural approaches to stormwater management, green roofs, other options, reduced percentage of land that is covered by impervious material. Honestly, we don't want to become another Beaverton. The current development plan is neither supportive common land spaces nor significant yard space. My last concern has to do with noise and lighting. Obviously, light pollution is a big problem. I did not see any specific enough details to determine how significantly light pollution will be mitigated, and we'd like more details on that, as well as for noise. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next comment is, oh boy. Yina Huang, was that you? I'm sorry. Okay, we've already got you. Pavel. Olaru? Okay, great. Please state your name and city of residence.
I'm Pavel Olaru, and I'm Oregon City. And yeah, my concern was about the water as well, because I just bought.
Can you move the mic a little closer?
I just bought the property there last year in August, and I still have well water. And like the guys previous me, they said something about water issues. I already talked with the city about bringing my on the property the water from public water. They say I have to bring like 4-inch pipes to dig, and it will cost me between $120,000 and $140,000 only to bring 4-inch, because it's 200 feet short from my property. And I say, okay, it's not possible for me to do that. And then another concern I have between me and my neighbor, it's a natural creek there. It's like the whole winter, I don't know previous years how it was before, but the whole winter I had like 3 inches or 4 inches of water. If I had to walk to my neighbor, I had to go with the boots. Or it's a lot of water. And increasing the volume of the asphalt there with a lot of roofs on the top of the houses, I don't know where the water goes. It's going to be on my property or in my well, and I don't know what to do. And that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm taking notes in case you're wondering. Okay. Next is Jed Peterson. And please state your name and city of residence for the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Jed Peterson, Oregon City resident. First, I'd like to say the notification was inadequate in the spirit of goal number 1 for Oregon land use. Some of my closest neighbors didn't receive any notification. They were only informed because of word of mouth. So I feel like we had a violation of goal number 1. Second, I agree with the majority of the many concerns that were expressed online in the documentation already and have already been expressed this evening. Because of the limit of 3 minutes, I'm going to just speak about Oregon land use goal number 12, which is transportation. Transportation, as you know, There's section 0060 of the Transportation Planning Rule, and that's a planning requirement for any new development that requires changes that may impact the transportation system that's existing. Whenever there's a change in the zone, detailed analysis needs to take place. As I outlined in my email, and that's included in the public record, the traffic impact study is deeply flawed. The development does not address the known limitations of Holcomb Boulevard. As already been expressed, it's a bottleneck for all the traffic coming off this hill. Originally, a connector road was going to be built between Redland and Holcomb, and that's not included in the existing plan. And as such, all traffic is going to be diverted to Holcomb. This project doesn't have any way to deal with the existing traffic. And if you look at the traffic impact study, they've already outlined that by 2025, even with growth that is projected without this development, there will be bottlenecks that are not adequate for existing traffic. There are an average of 9.5 trips per day by U.S. households by vehicle, and that includes bikes. But because of the location of this neighborhood, the vast majority of these trips are going to be by car. And if you look at the projection based on the traffic impact study, they estimate a very low number of trips per day. And that doesn't take into account e-commerce. Amazon's growing 15% annually in terms of number of deliveries. The amount of traffic that this is going to attract is tremendous. And with Holcomb being a small road, that's not going to be able to handle this kind of impact. I ask that we address these issues as outlined in the mitigation portion of the traffic impact study. There are known barriers to traffic flow, and those need to be addressed before we increase the stress on the system. We know that at Redland and OR 213, there's a tremendous issue, and it's only going to get worse with no development. But it'll be already at capacity by 2025. With the development, we're adding 400 to 500 more homes that can directly feed into that area.
Thank you very much. Elizabeth Peterson? Please state your name and city of residence.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Peterson, and I live in Oregon City. Thank you for having the meeting. I just want to address Oregon Land Use Goal number 7, which addresses areas subject to natural disasters and hazards. The mission of Oregon statewide natural hazard mitigation planning programs are to create a disaster resilient state of Oregon such that natural hazard events result in no loss of life, minimal property damage, and limited long-term impacts to the economy. This development site has a number of documented hazards and the immediate vicinity as well, including landslides, fire, flood, winds, ice hazards, erosion, as well as earthquakes and others. Clear cutting this area in order to put in houses will obviously put other property at immediate risk of trees falling, because once trees are cut down, the others are more likely to fall in a wind or ice storm. Obviously, reducing and eliminating all this vegetation also increases flooding and landslide risks, which is already a known risk. This area is a U.S. Geological Survey. The U.S. Geological Survey notes this area is a wetland, and it absorbs enormous amounts of water. Our property is adjacent to it, and from our property, you can see marsh plants, a marshy area plants, frogs, salamanders. Paving it over will obviously increase the ability of, or will decrease the ability of this area to absorb water and eliminate this habitat for the animals that live there. Everyone who will be living in this property will also be at an increased risk because of the bottleneck that has been addressed by a number of other people as well, because there is not an adequate evacuation route. In the past few years, it's been extremely difficult to get off of Holcomb, and evacuations have been delayed for a number of hours when there were wildfires and things like that. The existing infrastructure is inadequate for the current number of residents and the current population, and would be stressed beyond its capacity with these additional 500 homes and number of residents. Before any new development is undertaken, we really need to improve our infrastructure. Good planning does not put people or buildings in harm's way, and this development directly puts people in harm's way. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Mr. Tom Guile. Please state your name and city of residence.
Tom Guile of Oregon City. I'm limited to 3 minutes, so my testimony is a newspaper article that showed up last week in the Oregon City News that I wrote. I'd like to give a little history because there's a lot of people in the room and watching on the videos aren't aware of this. I'm going to read it. I timed it out for 3 minutes. So we're finally here at the beginning of the possible end. I have dealt with this for 18 years. I've been here dealing with this for then. I moved into my home on Trailview on July 25th, 2003. 25 days later, a neighbor up on Holcomb brought me a brochure about a pending Park Place concept plan. I immediately, believe it or not, the next day, placed my new home on the market with a for sale sign out front. Unfortunately, I was required to disclose the potential buyers what was going to happen behind me. So no buyers, and I eventually had to just take down the signs and live with this. I lived through 3 annexation attempts where citizens voted this down 67%, 56%, and then again, finally 62%. It was just too large. As you know, it was only pressure on our governor by a highly paid lobbyist that this property was annexed in. Citizens along Holcomb, Redland, and all the surrounding residential areas did not want the dangers of increased traffic. I lived through 3 attempts by the previous landowner, right on the steps of the previous city hall, that he and his brother would buy my house and move me if I would just shut up and stop writing articles. And I've said that over all the years, through all the hearings. When I asked for this to be put in writing, of course they couldn't. So here we are at the crossroads of the pseudo Park Place crossing. I have handed each of you a copy of the recent Oregon City News with a very clear article addressing codes, etc., about the traffic concerns that we on Holcomb and specifically in Trailview are concerned about. I would sincerely appreciate that you really take the time to read the article and to explore the traffic map attached before the next meeting on May 9th. Having been a planning commissioner, I know you can't read it while you're sitting there, so that's why I provided it tonight, so you'd have it for May 9th. In making your eventual decision, I would like to extend an invitation to this commission, our city attorney, ICON representatives to come up to Holcomb and experience the narrow road that nearly trapped us all during the fires of a few years ago. But more so, I invite you all and the aforementioned entities to come to Trailview and witness for yourselves the residential streets in Trailview that would become shortcuts for residents of this new development. Finally, in making a decision of this great of importance, I would extend an invitation for this commission to come up to my residents to peer over the development land in question. I am directly above what's going to happen. My property sits 8 feet above the land in question. Juries in a courtroom can make a field trip to inspect crime scenes. Why can't this commission make an educational group field trip? I won't even say a word, just come and look. There is no other way for this commission to actually see the land, and some of you have said that. You can't see the land or the pinch point because there's homes in the way without actually visiting the property in question. So otherwise, it is hidden by homes along Holcomb and Trailview. Mine is the only property bordering this development in question that has a clear view of the large property. During the initial concept plans in 2004-5 plan hearings, since I've had previous mayors, commissioners, ICON original developers like Ken Ziegler, Rick Givens, walk the property to see for themselves what we are facing. Truly cannot make a proper determination without actually for yourself what everyone is seeing. Can't see it from a street. So I'd like to thank you for your time. I'd ask you for a continuous, but that is but that is already on the record. So seriously, read that article and think about it. I don't know if the attorney allows it, but if everybody, they even brought a bus up during the concept plan. So the mayor at the time and all of them could walk and see what was behind all of Trailview, and they looked over all the property. And I think that's fair to ask all of you as a group to come and see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Can I ask a question? Is his newspaper article in the record? Will it be?
Yes, it will be.
Okay, thank you.
I couldn't submit it without the newspaper.
I think we have enough. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Howe.
Okay, yeah, thank you for asking that question, Commissioner Mitchell. All right.
And Chair Schlagenhofer, if you're interested, we can actually have 2 public comment people come up and sit at each table, and then that might save a little bit of time.
Sure. Okay, well, we are down to, that will help. Okay, Aaron, is it Von Stahl? Something like that. And I have Linda Smith again as herself, correct? Okay.
I have a PowerPoint slide, please. I think it's just in a folder called Aaron's folder.
And please state your name and city of residence.
Sure. Aaron Wanstall. I live in Oregon City. Good evening, and thank you for allowing myself and everyone else here a chance to talk. There's 2 topics I'd like to talk about. Specifically talking about citizen involvement and minimum lot size. I don't know if we have a clicker or someone else can advance for me. Thank you.
And this is just to confirm your presentation here?
It is. So I live in a neighborhood on Edenwild Lane, which is just immediately to the east of this new development where it's planned to be. I think similar to what Enoch talked about a little while ago, referring to the state of Oregon land use goal number 1, which is really focused on opportunities for citizens to be involved. More specifically, opportunities for widespread public involvement, effective 2-way communication with the public, and the ability for the public to be involved in all phases of the planning process, and making sure that the information available to them is easy to read and understand. Only of 4 homes on Edenwild were informed of this. We're hearing from those people tonight. I learned from my neighbors that this was happening in my neighborhood. There's a tremendous amount of history and background material from the neighborhood residents to review and publicly comment on. And I have to assume that 99% of the people on Holcomb Boulevard and Park Place were not aware of tonight's event. The development project will impact homes throughout the Park Place neighborhood, increasing traffic. There's an impact on schools and all of the supporting infrastructure. So our request is that the city keep the record open beyond May 9th, inform everyone in the neighborhood of what will be impacted so that they can review the material and have an opportunity to comment and able to get involved. The developer is requesting a smaller lot division than the currently zoned R5 in the order of common sense construction. The request is for the developer to define what they mean by common sense construction. I don't know what that means. House Bill 2001 requires cities to allow middle-sized developments. It does not require them to reduce the minimum lot size. Helping to increase affordable housing is a goal, but not to increase housing density. Granting the variant for a smaller lot size will increase population density, increase the percentage of impervious materials, increase stormwater runoff, increase pollution, and decrease the safe access that we've heard about already tonight. We request that the city exercise its right to maintain the minimum lot size as R5 and ask the developer to redesign their master plan, keeping this in mind, in order to support the infrastructure, the environment, and the neighbors. The developer argues that the smaller lot size will reduce, quote, unused open space. But open space will reduce the amount of impervious materials on the property. It'll decrease light pollution and increase the amount of land to wildlife habitation. Again, we request that the city exercise its right to maintain the minimal lot size at R5. In summary, we request that the city keep the record open past May 9th, inform all of the folks in the neighborhood on Holcomb Boulevard of the impact, allow them to be involved with their community and in this process, And second, we request that the city exercise its right to maintain its minimal lot size at R5 and require the developer to redesign their master plan in order to minimize impact on supporting infrastructure, the environment, and the neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. And we are back to Linda.
Linda Smith, I reside in Oregon City, representing myself this time. So I'm going to go off on the lot size also. A 20% reduction in lot size is an 1,800 square foot lot size is the size of a very small 3-bedroom home. And I can't imagine that being your entire lot size. No size, room for parking, play area, setback from your neighbors. And of course, I know this is going to be, attached homes, but that's still egregiously small in my opinion. I also want to talk about the variation request for altering the size of the streets. The Park Place urbanization study that was just completed in 2021 set with the transportation system plan, the city of Oregon City set for Park Place standards for street widths. And I think new construction ought to be held to that. I mean, we just said it. Let's stick with it. Let's don't allow any variances, especially for brand new construction. That should be denied. And I want to point out the difference, adding 470 new homes to 1,400 homes, that's a 34% increase in the number of units. That doesn't equate to population because we have a lot of older people that live in our area. So when you think of the number of units, that we have there currently, a lot of them are only occupied by 1 or maybe 2 people. But this would be a brand new neighborhood. And so that would invite younger families to larger homes. So probably much more denser population. So even though it would only be 34% more units, I'm guessing it would be 40 or 50% more population to our entire area. So when you talk about the number of trips that are going to be put and the burden that's going to happen, it's going to increase the burden on our schools, on our parks, on our bike paths, on our transportation, which you guys have heard about over and over again, the burden on our fire and police because that many more people. And no one's mentioned the addition of this series neighborhood that's going to be put in right across the street from where this is at. And that's another 170 homes. And so that together with this development is 46% more units than what we have in our neighborhood currently. It's too much. We've got to call an end to it until we can figure out the transportation and all the other infrastructures that we need in our neighborhood. Holcomb Boulevard cannot support this. This is just not doable. The plan for the Park Place concept was to have the exit go down the other side of the hill, not Holcomb Road. So unless these guys can figure out a different way to do it, you guys should not allow this to happen. I don't know how we got here. This is not how it should be, my opinion.
Thank you, Linda. Okay, it's going to be, I hope it's Kenneth Niche, sorry, and George Shubin. And we'll go Kenneth first and then George. Okay, all right. Pass on George. It'll be Steve Mundahl after Ken. And you can begin, just state your name and city of residence.
My name is Kenneth Niche. I live off of Edenwald Lane. And I built my home in the past 2 years. And I have seen the amount of water that comes down off these hills. I have a reservoir that's defunct. It used to supply this Oregon City, its water supply. It's a 1 million gallon reservoir. It's fed by 21 springs. It's open so the water flows. So to attest to the amount of water that Jed brought up, yes, there's a tremendous amount of water. In addition, the property it's to the south of me and the east of me is a pasture land. And I talked to the woman there and asked her, do you see evidence of erosion and movement of soil? She said, absolutely. My pastures change yearly because of the underground water. So you can get fire insurance, you can get earthquake insurance, you can't get slide insurance. So whoever's thinking about building in that area, they better be able to post a bond, or the city has to post a bond. If that properties. These properties start to slide. The people that bought the properties and invested their life savings to their first home or to their second home are going to lose. They're going to be responsible for the mortgage payments with absolutely nothing to live in. And I don't think that's, you know, we've had many different instances of apartments sliding, Street of Dreams sliding, and this is just a headache waiting to happen. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Steve.
Hi, I'm Steve Mundell. Oregon City resident, and I've heard many valid points made from an aspect of the Holcomb Boulevard. I am off of Lifesay, and I understand the 300-foot mailing. I do those myself, but often that's important to do with a construction project regarding noise, but this project affects the community of Lifesay. And as a community member, I don't feel like, you know, the lots on our road are larger, upwards of an acre. And so that doesn't give very much notification as if you go for a 300 feet boundary. As far as the plan to funnel traffic instead of Holcomb, I understand their perspective, but then Redland and Holly is also a bottleneck. And this last storm, Redland was closed for 2 days. There is some bottleneck with traffic. The lots are too small actually to fit in the community that they're of the land that is being developed. There's about, if you calculate 1,800 square feet, that's 20 lots per acre. And that kind of dwelling just doesn't fit in with, if you're trying to integrate into the community that exists already in the area that this development is taking over. And it, to many of us, seems almost like a hostile takeover of this, you know, more or urban development into rural area. And many people appreciate the more rural feeling, which it is a park right now. It's not going to be a park with this. There's many places where shops can go, but in the heart of this community isn't really appreciated. And at this point, that's all I have to say. I didn't realize this meeting was occurring until yesterday because of the notice, but appreciate your comments.
Thank you. Okay, I believe we have one more comment left in here, and that is, there is no name on here. Email is Adela Bell. All right, please state your name and city of residence.
Yes, hi, Adela Bell, Oregon City. All right, thank you so much. I think I would say, first of all, that I agree with almost everything that's been said before me, so thank you for all of those that spoke and were so well prepared. Our notice also only came at the end of March, so we've just had a few weeks to try to figure out and understand what's happening. We moved onto our property in 2016, and we're not made aware of any of this. Based on the current plans, from what we can tell, there'd be at least 5 or 6 lots that would have direct contact with our lot. We're in Meadow Ridge Estates, and looking at the planning website, the project page and documents, have spent time reviewing them. I would say for a layperson, they are extremely difficult to understand. The legends are not complete. I can't tell what's a street, what's a paved pathway or a walkway. There's just some things on the visuals that are not accounted for in the legends. There are future off-site streets denoted one on the south side of our property that looks to come directly across our property. Unclear why that would be the case or where that would go. There's another future off-site street denoted on the northeast side of our property. I think there's Street C and Street B respectively, if I understand the maps correctly. It's again unclear what is south of lots 75 and 82 and between 74. Is it a street? Is it a paved walkway? Unsure. I am unclear on the preservation plans for all of the trees and things around us. There's a lot of mature trees, oak trees, different trees. It's unclear how many will remain, how many will be removed, and especially in terms of some of the slopes that were talked about, those 25% slopes are directly behind our property. You remove some of those trees, it's unclear what impact that would have to our property and slides or any risk there. Development standard variances, I have no idea why we would allow reduction of lot sizes by 20%. That's news to me that you can even request that. I'm sorry, I'm new to the planning process, but I would strongly object to that. It seems like a ridiculously high reduction. Concerned about livability and increased traffic. We are off of Redland Road. It is the only road that you can take in and out of town to get to 213, to get to 205. Similar to some of the others that have spoken during the wildfires of 2020, we could not get out of our neighborhood with the current traffic. I can't imagine what that would look like with now an increase of 500 homes with an average, 2 cars per home. It seems like it would make that completely unlivable. I have no idea what the traffic studies indicate, but I can't see how that would be a good thing. We also are on well water, and again, I'm unsure about the impact that all of the planning going on around us, whether it's removing trees or putting in things, what that would have to our well, and if there's any risk there, and there's nothing that I can see that sort of says any studies have done to indicate that there would be no negative impact. I think that is about it, other than, again, stressing that for a layperson, again, really difficult to look at the plans, understand them. We tried calling the planning office, unfortunately, did not get any callbacks. They said tonight that they were just too busy and couldn't do that. So would have maybe been more prepared had we been able to get someone to speak with that could answer some things and help explain some things. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, that is it for my comment cards. How many do we have online?
So the first one I have listed is Ron. And if you can unmute yourself, turn on your video, and state your name and city of residence. Looks like Ron's having maybe not on his computer. So we'll move on to Darren. It says Darren's iPad. If you can unmute and turn on your video. Moving on, Glenn Sutherland.
I'm with the applicant's team and I don't have any poor comments.
Oh, as I could hear, it said you will not be submitting, you'll not be providing public comment.
That's correct.
Okay, and Todd is the next person, Mobley.
I'm also with the applicant's team and don't have any testimony this evening.
All right, then the next person is Nathan. No answer. There's another person named Zoom user. It looks as though they have left. The next person is Joe.
I'm also with the applicant team that I'm not providing any public comment tonight.
All right, thank you. And now we have the final person, iPhone 2. All right, that's everybody that I have on my list. So take it back.
Okay, and then last chance, anyone in the audience that feels compelled to speak? Okay. You can fill out a comment card afterwards.
I did fill out one. I don't know what happened.
Oh, I'm sorry if I missed it. I didn't see it. Please state your name and city of residence.
Sure, my name is Chris Goodell.
You're the applicant.
Right.
Okay, all right.
Sure.
I do have that one. I wasn't sure if you were speaking or not.
Very briefly.
Okay.
So, thank you, Chair Schlagenhofer. Did I get that right?
That was good, thank you.
Cool. All right. And fellow members of the Plan Commission, my name is Chris Goodell of AKS Engineering. Our address is 12965 Southwest Herman Road, Suite 100, Tualatin, Oregon 97062. We're working with ICON, the property owner and applicant, on the Park Place Crossing General Development Plan. We've reviewed the materials in the meeting packet and appreciate the comments received in the staff report and then the comments that were provided here this evening. We're here tonight to support city staff's recommendation to open and continue the hearing to May 9th, at which time the applicant's team will be providing a presentation of the application before the Planning Commission. Thank you for your time here tonight.
Thank you. Okay, any commissioners have any questions about anything before we have a motion for the continuance?
Yeah, I have three things.
Okay.
This first one's for Ms. Richter, and I don't expect an answer tonight. In fact, I think it would be better probably to get it at May 9th. My concern is, and someone brought it up in their testimony, we're working our way through the code revisions for HB 2001. And my concern is, okay, so this is the general development plan, which may or may not have action taken on it before the June 30th deadline. And then there'll be detailed development plans. So my question is, how will the code revisions in HB 2001 potentially affect this proposal?
That next on May 9th.
Thank you very much. And then two requests from staff, for staff. The first, the agenda for tonight, the HTML version, had a lot of links to material already, like the transportation study and the NROD study and so forth that are already on the agenda. Over the next 2 weeks, when you add additional items, will you please make it really clear when something's been, getting the title of it, that it's revised or new? Because I've already chewed through a fair amount of this, and I don't want to have to go back and see what might have changed. You get what I'm asking for? Okay, thank you. And then the final thing that would be helpful for me, and I think it would be helpful for the other commissioners, if you could print out an 11 by 17 hard copy map for each of us. And I think the one that is in page 8 of their, what did it say, drawings and plans, I think was the name of the PDF. If you have a suggestion on one that might work better for us, but I think it would be helpful for all of us to have a hard copy in front of it, because trying to juggle what's on the screen, trying to see what's on those TVs. So please, I would appreciate that. And that's all I have.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, then I think at this point we are ready for a motion to continue to a date certain of May 9th. Anyone care to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to continue to May 9th, date certain.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Call roll.
Commissioner Bob LaSalle.
Aye.
Commissioner Chris Staggs.
Yes.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Chair Dirk Schlagenhofer.
Aye.
And Commissioner Patty Gage.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, all right. Again, thank you everyone for attending, and we do appreciate you being here. Next item on the agenda is communications. Do we have any communications?
There are no communications. While we still have audience members, I just want to remind everyone that when a public hearing is continued to a date certain, we do not send out a new notice. So there isn't going to be a new notice, but the hearing will resume on May 9th. Same time, same, yes,
7 PM, yeah.
yeah. So I would request that you address your questions to the commission, or if you want to stick around, we can chat afterwards and I can talk to you about that.
Good. I can't answer that. Maybe Ms. Richter?
The code specifies what the notice requirements are, and I believe that the concern has been that perhaps those notice measurements were not calculated correctly, and I will work with staff to revisit that, and if it turns out that the code requirements with respect to the distance were not measured correctly, we will, there will be new notice, and you can read about it on the city's agenda page.
Okay, and clearly, anybody could share the news. I'm not saying that's the proper protocol, but if you know neighbors that haven't heard, if you could fill them in, since we're limited on our abilities to make notices, and our notice structure is written in the law. So, that's all I've got. Anyone else have anything to say? Okay, then we are adjourned.